Mr. President, I know there's a lot you're going to be covering in your State of the Union address this year, but I want to make sure you don't overlook a growing problem in America. And that problem is climate change and its effect on agriculture. Climate change will have a huge impact on our nation's farms and ranches. You don't have to take my word for it. USDA has just issued a report based on hundreds of scientific studies. Collectively, these studies show that our climate is changing and it's becoming something we've never seen before. According to the report, increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide, rising temperatures, and changing rainfall patterns will affect productivity in the coming decades. The droughts and downpours will be more common and more destructive, and in the future, we may not be able to grow many crops where we grow them today. The report says it's imperative that we act now to prepare for this if we're going to continue feeding ourselves and the world. Now, Mr. President, it's good that we're getting ready for the worst, but more importantly, maybe we need to be working to prevent more climate change in the first place. Now, I know this is a touchy subject, Mr. President, so I thought you might use a little encouragement from some of your predecessors. Thomas Jefferson was the first president to mention the word climate in the State of the Union address. He was talking about the Louisiana Purchase when he praised the Mississippi River. He said it would unlock the fertility of the country, its climate and extent, and promise in due season important aid to our treasury and ample provisions for our posterity. Mr. President, he said that in 1803. In 2012, extreme droughts killed crops and livestock throughout the West and caused stretches of the Mississippi River to drop so low they had to be dredged just to carry barge traffic. The nation's GDP fell as a result, and more extreme swings in precipitation could make the Mississippi River even less predictable in the future. In 1938, after seeing the ravages of the Dust Bowl, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt attacked the farming practices that had led to that disaster in his State of the Union address. He said abusing the land in an attempt to maximize production while failing to practice good stewardship was not an inherent right of citizenship. For if a man farms his land to the waste of the soil of the trees, he destroys not only his assets, but the nation's assets as well. Now, Mr. President, replace the specter of the Dust Bowl with the growing threat of climate change, and FDR's sentiment is even more compelling today. It's not our inherent right to burn up our natural resources while altering the very climate that has allowed human civilization to thrive. As prolific per capita consumers of fossil fuels, we Americans are in a powerful position to make a difference. And who do you think had one of the strongest calls to address climate change in his State of the Union address? Wasn't Jimmy Carter. Wasn't Bill Clinton. It was George W. Bush in 2007 who said that America is on the verge of technological breakthroughs that will enable us to live our lives less dependent on oil. These technologies will help us become better stewards of the environment, and they will help us to confront the serious challenge of global climate change. Now, Mr. President, if a former oil man whose vice president was the former head of Halliburton can see the need to take global climate change seriously, you might be on a little safer ground than you think. Mr. President, we Americans can lead the way in making the world a better place, not just for farmers and ranchers, but for everyone. And just imagine, Mr. President, with a little bold leadership on this issue, maybe you that future generations are quoting.